who will be taking us through understanding today's economics in context. Please permit me to introduce the founder and chairman of AACS, an international consulting firm. AACS is into management consulting and supporting public policy formulation, especially through the publication of its fortnightly business nugget, AACS Fortnightly. He has over 25 years of experience rising through the ranks of key Nigerian banks from a trainee officer to the level of executive director. He has worked across public sector, commercial banking, treasury, strategy, and re-engineering. He is an acclaimed leader of many groundbreaking teams in the finance and banking sector. He has served on the boards of trustees of Lagos State Security Trust Fund and Oyo State Security Trust Fund, and was chairman of Cocoa Products Limited, CPIL, Ile Oluji, one of Nigeria's largest cocoa processing and exporting companies. He is an alumnus of Ondo State University, Ado Ekiti, now Ekiti State University, University of Ibadan, and Ambrose Ali University, Epoma, where he earned an MBA in Management and Finance. He was awarded a Doctor of Banking and Finance by the Leeds University and a Doctor of Economics by the University of Ado Ekiti. He has participated in numerous leadership and management courses, including the Senior Management Program, South Africa, Advanced Management Program, AMP, and then INSEAD France, and others at Ivy College schools, including Harvard, London Business School, and MIT. In fact, no be small something. He is a senior member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, a certified management consultant, and a fellow of the Institute of Management Consultants. Please let's welcome the one and only Dr. Falil Abina, the chairman of AACS and management consultant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was nice that I stood up, so I knew it was me, because I know I discussed this with Coach Anekan a few months back, and we had an agreement. So when the lady started to read a different kind of CV, I was starting to wonder whether they had changed their mind to bring in someone. But I was standing up, so I knew it was me. It's a pleasure to be here today. I don't have all the time in the world, but I just want us to touch on some very critical issues. It's going to be a bit difficult when you come from the background of what I've listened to Mrs. Yomi Balogun talk about. I would actually love to be in her class all the time, because I see a lot of the things that people think I'm good about. I see a lot of the things missing in me that I hear her talk about. And so there's a way we get to a point where we do some things so well, we do not remember a whole lot of things that we don't do quite well. I really love to listen to her, a whole lot of things she's been talking about. It also takes me to one of the observers, the lady who's a lawyer, who said you should learn to say no. I learned to start to say no maybe about a year ago, because all my life I believe that giving is what it is. My biggest joy is to be able to share what I have. It gives me a lot of joy. But then I found out that it even actually starts to scare you. So when I look through my phone and I see that I have like 20 obligations, to read them starts to be an issue. Because the minute I read them, I must oblige. So it's a very big task, but learning to say no, I actually found out that it doesn't kill the other party, and it gives you a bit of, it gives you a bit of peace. It's been a very tough week for me, and that's why I love the theme of this whole nugget and today's session. On Sunday, a colleague of mine that we used to work together in the bank a long time ago, who is a fitness addict, was riding his bicycle, and he got run down by a car, and he passed. Great guy, an extremely intelligent human being who's doing extremely very well within the business circle in Nigeria. And that's it. So I continued my week, which usually is very stressful. And 2 days ago, I slept around 11:30 and then woke up at I woke up at about 12:30, maybe a bathroom break. Usually when I do my bathroom breaks, I take a look at my phone. I just always do it, okay? And then someone has sent me a message that a friend of, a junior colleague of mine, actually, a lady, an extremely pleasant lady, extremely pleasant. I chatted with her 24 hours before that she had passed. She's always smiling. And she had made up her mind that she was leaving the industry and she was going to North America, maybe within the next 2-3 weeks. And then she passed that same day. So while I was dealing with that, I couldn't sleep because nobody was going to talk to me again at 1 a.m. So I was just rolling and rolling. And then around 6 o'clock, I just dozed off, woke up at 7:30. Then my cousin called me and said, one of our big Egbons, who was an ambassador somewhere in Europe, had also passed. That's all within 5 days. So I take a good look at what life presents us. And it says we need to calm down with a lot of things. That's why when you come to sessions like this, you see that there's a whole lot to life other than success in terms of what people want to count to. You went to this school, you did that. There's a whole lot to it. So that's what I would have wanted to continue to talk about. That's not where my expertise or my knowledge really plays around. My knowledge plays around a bit of finance, economics, and trying to get people to do well. That's what I've done, a whole lot of my life. And what I want to discuss today is about the developmental fierce urgency of now in Nigeria, a citizenry sober reflection. So basically, sorry? So I need to use my. So, huh? What's going on? Okay, so basically, we can talk a whole lot about wellness and what have you. But the Yoruba says, Ailolo Baba Ijaya, that if you do not have enough money in your pocket or you cannot meet some of your obligations without even doing anything wrong to anybody, you can be very worried. You haven't done anything wrong, you just want to look. You check your bank account and all you have there is maybe 500 now, 1,000, and you start to get scared. You didn't do anything wrong to anyone. But imagine if your account is a bit huge and empty. It gives you extra level of confidence on how to get things done and what have you. It pushes you around. So I'm looking at, there's a fierce urgency of now to get things done in our country. Major. Because there are so many things that are going on. And the easy thing we always say is we just point to the leaders. They're not doing well. This person is not doing well. It's very constant. That's what we all do. But I always ask myself, what about us, the citizenry? So I take the entire stream of leaders and say, make them part of the citizens and say, how well are we all doing? Are we all attending to issues? Are we following the basic rules of mathematics that says 1 + 1 is 2? Or we assume that we can do anything we want in our corner and everything will be fine? I am not too sure that that is correct. So it brings me to this. And the first person that actually talked about this term was a man called Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963 when he was marching on Washington. Those are the civil rights days in America. And part of what he said was that he reminded a divided nation of the need of being together and being stronger when they all march together to get things done. Okay? He said the fierce urgency of now is not just a call to action. It's also a call to acknowledge the truth. How many of us actually do acknowledge the truth? There's a Yoruba proverb that says, if a man buys a loaf of bread and he lies that he's bought 3, you don't need to argue with him. When he eats the loaf of bread for breakfast, the one he bought, the ones he did not buy, he will also eat them for lunch and for dinner. And so the truth will tell him, you don't need to argue. So I'm a Lagos person, so I go to parties and what have you. And at times, if I stand in front of King Sunny Ade and he sees me and he start calling my name, telling me about my parents and things, and then Aliko Dangote is walking right beside me and he says in Yoruba, oh, kì í ṣe ẹgbẹ́ wọn, ẹgbẹ́ bàbá wọn ló ń ṣe, which means technically in my language that you are not their mate, You are their grandfather's mate. And Aliko is standing right beside you. Now, I can dance to that and give him whatever money I have. But the moment I get to my house and I get into my room, I tell myself exactly what the truth is. Come, you never reach in grandson. Not to even talk of him. You have to acknowledge the truth to yourself. A lot of times, the problem starts from the fact that you cannot acknowledge the truth to yourself. And when you wallow in it, in lies, you fool yourself through a whole lot of things. So we have to acknowledge the fact that tomorrow is today. And stop pointing towards, something is going to happen tomorrow. We have to do the planning today, and we have to look at ourselves today. There's no time for complacency. And we have to take vigorous and positive action. Now, there was a book in 2015 written by a professor at Princeton University called Julian Salazar. It's the first urgency of now. And basically what the book was talking to was about the period after the death of President Kennedy in America. Lyndon Johnson was the vice president, so when Kennedy died, he became the president. And usually, vice presidents are spare tires. The real action is meant to be the president. But that period in America, that 3 years, between 1963 and 1966, was one of the most remarkable years in terms of achievement. That was the period that was, it was compared to the period of the New Deal during the reign of Roosevelt in America, when a whole lot of things were done. This was when the Civil Rights Act was passed, which was what Martin Luther King was fighting for, the Voting Rights Act, the war on poverty, Medicare and Medicaid, as you know it in America today. A whole lot of things that the country stands upon today was passed around that period. Between just those 3 years, 1963 and 1966. So that period in America was referred to as the Great Society. That was when the bedrock and the foundation of some of the things we see today happening in one of the greatest countries of the world, arguably depending the way you want to look at it, happened. And what triggers it was what they call the first urgency. And basically in English, is like what some people say is tautology. It's first, urgent. We have to get it done now. And that's actually the point I think we have found ourselves in this country. A whole lot of things are not properly as together as they should be. If you open your phone every day, there are lots of complaints. People are calling you, people want jobs, people are hungry, there's money, want to pay. I've had people who've driven in G-Wagon to come to my house to take 50,000 naira. I've worked in banks, and I know that when you see a man with big flowing agbada and he has a convoy of 6 cars, doesn't mean that he's rich. He's coming to my desk to stand in front of me and say, Ayo, if you don't sign this check, na death. And everybody has been busy saying toilet to him. And all of it is just make believe. You got to put up the appearance. But that's really not the truth. It's really not the truth. If you see what transpires in the life of some of the people that you supposedly envy, you will thank God for your life. You will thank God if you can get contentment. And that's what I learned from my father. He says you can have everything. God can decide to give you all the material things you want. If he denies you contentment, he's denied you everything. Because you keep asking, you keep longing, you keep moving on. So lots of things bother us today. Security, we know what's happening. It wasn't as bad as that. It gets increasingly bad. Some of these things is related to economics as well. People are at home, they don't have anything to eat, they haven't gotten good education, and they're looking for the easiest way out. We know all about the economy, jobs, inflation. Tell me, unemployment, infrastructure, leadership, accountability. It's a really tough time. Very, very tough. And people actually say that this is the time we have to take a decision whether we are moving ahead or not. This topic looks at the critical issues and how a sober reflection by us, that's you and I, can help to kickstart a renaissance. It assumes that the citizenry changing the narrative together by looking at the man in the mirror is what will get things done for us, not necessarily looking at the leadership. We think it's a sine qua non. It's a prerequisite to the achievement of the objectives of the Renaissance. However, the insistence of the citizens to hold the leadership accountable. Basically, the whole story I'm trying to say is that it's a very crucial time in the lives of everyone. Even coming here to attend this session is because we need to get some things. How do we prepare ourselves mentally, our health? How do we aspire to try and do more as we're going to? That's what we're all looking for. We're struggling to get things done. Out there, a whole lot of things is going on. Even as we sit here, I do not know the volume of dependence that everybody here has. It's a really tough time. This country and its citizens are built differently. What happens around here, in a whole lot of the countries of the world, if 10% of it happens, there'll be a revolution. The 1789 revolution in Europe that started in France started with scarcity of bread, and bread was expensive. And people just started to go haywire. In this country, everybody could just manage. You can push it on, no matter what happens. We're seeing when dollar was what? About 15 years, a dollar to about 120, 130, for about 15 years. In the last 10 years, it's been all over the place, and we even just joke about it. Dollars we want to 1,000, without, putting into context the effects of it on our lives. It's a very difficult time. So what I say is, as difficult as it is, do we think leadership will come and fix it? I don't think so. The reason is because we're actually the leaders. All you have to do is take out all the leaders that are there today, everywhere, the way you know them, and replace them with those of us around here. And it will be the same thing because the orientation is the same, the style is the same, the belief is the same. So we have to change that man in the mirror from you and I before we start to get things done. I believe that the moment we start to change that man in the mirror in terms of even our relationship with economics, then we can hold the leadership accountable that the gains we are getting will obviously start to manifest positively in our lives. But are we going to walk away from here or talk to people to get things done? My pension people, they came to see me yesterday, and I had not touched my pension since I left the bank effectively in 2020. And I know how much that has been in. So the value of my pension in Naira then, if I change it to dollars, I know what I'll be worth now. I'm probably worth maybe 60% poorer. But I said to them, I did not change it. I will not have changed it. If the situation changed or remained or I went back in history, I would still have kept it like that. Now, for someone that understands a bit of economics, it's foolish. I take it. I actually like my foolishness at times. But the problem is that for someone that thinks maybe I'm a bit of an expert in a couple of things, I say, no, all of you should go and take your Naira and change it to dollar. The implication of it is that all the Nairas you have is chasing dollar. It is not a problem. The dollar will move. It's first principle of economics. The dollar will move from whether it's 500, till it moves to 10,000. We can all do it. So my point is that I will not allow that to happen. In my own little space, I will fight it not to let it happen. It will come with a bit of foolishness. But trust me, at the end of the day, there's a bit of peace to when you get things stable in the society. And that's why you are driving in your car, somebody's going to Alakpera and is scared. Because there are people that are hungry right beside her that could do anything, that could throw things, throw caution to the wind. So I think the big problem is, to what extent are we as citizens holding the pattern and say we need to check things? So I'll show you some examples I want us to reflect on, and you see how you perform within some of those things to determine exactly how things got this tough. So today the exchange rate, according to CBN, is 445 naira. 445 naira to $1. Okay. Now that is the loaf of bread. Now to the 3 loaves, or the ones we didn't buy. In the parallel markets, it says it's about 750 naira or thereabout. Which means and you're not going to get all the monies you want from CBN anyway. So the issue is, how did we get here? The simple answer actually is that every naira we have is chasing the dollar. Everything we want to do is chasing the dollar. Every single thing. And then government comes around and says, look, there are some things we'll manage. So if you want to go to Dubai, or you want to go to England, or you want to go out of the country, we'll give you something called the PTA. Fantastic. So we all go to the bank, we queue for it. They give us $4,000 at 445 naira or 430 naira to $1, the way it is. Then when they give me that money, I take $3,000 of it and I face the black market straight away, and I sell it at 750 to $1. I put it in my bank and say, I'm wise, I'll be street. I'm street. Okay? So as much as possible, everybody is trying to get into that system, take off whatever, and then you think you are smart. You are actually not as smart as you think you are. You're actually cheating yourself. The entire bucket belongs to all of us, and we're all just eating from it. And that's exactly what's happening. Nobody, what do we export in this country? Absolutely nothing. We import absolutely everything. And the few things that we get to export are raw materials or very pure primary products that some people get abroad and they change into manufactured product and then send back to us, and then we start to buy it expensively. The projection for next year is that it will take us 130% of every money we earn to service our debt. So basically what that says in pure English is that you have to borrow 30% in excess of everything you earn next year to service debt. You have not started to pay to service. So, and we've not talked about taking care of ourselves. I'm bringing you out of these issues. I've talked about PTAs, the medical, the school fees, everybody's jackpotting now. Okay? These are the things that are going on. And I'm saying, why? Why are they going on? Why do people go all the way to say, I will eat my lunch now, and then do not realize that part of what you're doing now is that you're actually hurting yourself? So today, there's about $600 million that foreign airlines are waiting for the CBN to remit to their country. And some airlines like Emirates are saying, we will not come to your country again unless they remit the money. And CBN is not remitting. They're not remitting not because they don't want to. It's because there's not enough there. It's basic demand and supply. But how did we even get here? Every one of us goes to Dubai. And so you go to Emirates and say, I'm going to Dubai. Fine. They say, we'll sell you a ticket for $1,000. So what do? You give Emirates 445,000 naira. And they take it. And then Emirates go to CBN and say, we want $1,000 for this 445,000 naira. That's not the truth. The truth is that the value of that dollar is probably about 750. So basically, the government, you, because you are the government, you are actually subsidizing that ticket by another 300,000 naira or thereabout. That is actually the truth. So you can make that trip 4 or 5 times in a year. You are subsidizing it each time. It's from a bucket. It's just one bucket. We sell this crude oil. It goes into that bucket, and then we go and eat all from that subsidy. That's what's happening. The reason I'm saying this to you is that let us think about it when, unfortunately, if you have irresponsible politicians who do not use mathematics in making promises, we'll build this school here, we'll do this medical here, it's a lie. In real countries of the world, when you make promises or you have a manifesto, there's a budget office that will cost the value of those things you want to do. Vice versa your revenue to know whether it is true or not. But if you choose to buy my lie, I will sell it to you. And then you can be clapping for me as well and be defending me. We can't even pay our debt. We can't even service our debt. So why is the first question that we're asking leaders who are making big promises, how do you intend to do this? The way to do it will be a lot of sacrifices, which we are not prepared to tell ourselves. We want to continue to buy that loaf of bread and lie that it is 3. When you continue along this trajectory for a long time, you will get to a point, your back is to the wall, you will tell yourself the truth. Because it just can't keep on like that. It just can't. So you see, there's a whole lot of subsidy going on that we are feeding on. But the government will not tell us that these subsidies are going on because they want to remain where they are. They do not want to tell you the truth because they're also not leading by example. So an average person in this country today, you and I, think that we're a rich country. We are not a rich country. We're a poor country with a huge potential to be successful and be rich. Huge potential, but we are poor. We are 220 million people fighting on 2 million barrels of oil every day, priced at between maybe $50 to $95, depending on what it is, and we're all sharing among those 220 million people. In Qatar, there are about 2 million people with the same resources. That's how you determine your per capita, to know whether you are rich or not. But if I see my governor driving a convoy of 25 cars, I make a foolish assumption that we are rich, so I'm aspiring to be there because we are rich. If I see some humongous looking houses and I see people living huge life of affluence and what have you, it's a dirty December and all those things, I make an assumption that it is a rich country. It is not a rich country. It is a country with enormous potentials that can be very wealthy. It is now left for us as citizenry as to how do we realize these potentials to get things done. All my life, I don't criticize people. I am a solution provider. So every fortnight at my firm, we write out nuggets and things like that. How can we get this done? I know what the troubles are. I know what the problems are. There's no point in me screaming about it anymore. I'm looking for simple solutions. What can we do about this? What can we quickly do? Just the little things that can get things done. And that's what I think every one of us must preach in our little corner if we intend to get anywhere out of this trouble. Because you're going to wake up tomorrow morning, right on your phone, you're going to see 10 people waiting. My own people are standard. They just say, good morning, Ayo. How are you doing? The child school fees is due, the account number is in. They put all the details there, and then they wait. Then you don't need an interaction. They give you the full detail and tell you exactly what to do. And I have them like that in 10s, in 50. A lot of them are genuine as well. Until I started listening to the advice of my dear friend there, the lawyer, to say, calm down. This thing cannot continue to work like this. But the truth is that a lot of these demands are genuine. How are we going to get out of this? Is it by this same wishful thinking to say somebody will become the leader and this will happen? Are we going to keep forgetting the basic rules of mathematics? The basic principle of economics? That if the demand is way in excess of the supply, the price will go up. You cannot reinvent the wheel. How does it happen? And I still think the problem starts and ends with you and I. When you see some of our leadership or our leaders misbehaving, the problem starts with you and I because we allow them to. We have choices. We have preferences. For instance, I said to a lot of my friends, I said, look, I have preferences in these elections coming. But even those preferences, I'm going to put a sword to their neck. I'm not going to give you a pass. I am not going to say, because this man looks like me or he looks like what I want, I will give him a pass. I want us to hold him accountable. I think, okay, maybe out of all the lots of people that are there, this might be the better person, but I can also see a lot of fallibilities. So I want us all to put them to task. And the way to do it is if we are honest with ourselves. So the truth is, right at the back of our mind there, we all know what should be, we all know perhaps what should be the best for us. But because we are focused on ourselves as much as possible, trying to get things done, we just let things slip. And I'm saying, unless the man in the mirror starts to affect some of these things we do in economics, it's not going to happen. Look at the next thing I was going to discuss about, is the fuel subsidy. So this country is the 6th largest producer of crude in the world. In 1990, for those of us that were old enough to do that then, I was in my final year in the university then, there was what was called the Gulf Oil Windfall. What happened was that America had invaded Iraq. And so naturally what happens at that time is that Iraq is an oil-producing country, and then clearly it affects supply, price shoots up, and you start to make money. So we made a whole lot of money because there was a spike. We were even querying. There was the Powers of Kigbo report. Where's the money? There was plenty of money. Again, the Russian-Ukrainian battle has been going on since February, and prices have shot up again. But this time around, there is no windfall at all to even start with. Why? There's no windfall because we do not refine our crude locally here. So it means that when the price in the international market perhaps goes to like $100 and everybody is making money and we're getting a huge level of return, what happens is that that same $100 is what we take back into that market to go and buy refined fuel. We're going to use the same FX to buy it. And so you see that our gain is nil. Nothing happens. So I sell the crude per barrel at say $100. But because I'm going to import PMS for people to use, I take that dollar back into that market and I waste it there. Ideally, if the refineries were working, then you will see this huge windfall. Now, what happens along this now? The landing cost is 510 naira. I said, you know what, plus or minus, let's just say logistics, and this is not scientific. Let's say logistics is 25% of that. Logistics and profit, it gives you maybe another 125 naira thereabout, and you get the price land at 637 naira at your pumps. We all buy it at 145 naira. Fantastic. So it means then that there's a huge subsidy on it. And why should there be subsidy? There should be subsidy because there's a fear that we cannot afford the common man or the struggling people to go and be buying at this huge rate, especially when they were not used to it. Then all the things will escalate. So the man that is taking his products from Ikorodu to go and sell in Ikeja. If the transporters do that to him, he will do the same thing, and then you get the multiplier effect. That's basically the logic behind it. Now, the false choice is that the volume that is said to be consumed is not realistic. So what will I say? I will say, you've got to take off the subsidy. Now, who enjoys the subsidy? I have 3 cars, okay? And I fill those 3 cars at 145 naira per liter. I'm saying, for what I earn, nobody should subsidize me. I should pay the full value of it. For the man that decides to drive a convoy of 25 cars, whatever his position is in the society, filling those cars at 145 naira per liter, when the price per se, it may be ranging around 700, he doesn't deserve to do that. And then all those guys are loading it into the tanks and then going to go and land them at the border where they can sell them for 800 now. He doesn't deserve to. And the excuse is that the few people we want to protect is the excuse where we used to do this. To the extent that the projection for this year is that 6.7 trillion naira is going to be spent on subsidy, which is about 39% of the entire budget for the year. About 40% of the entire money you make in the year is going to go into this subsidy. So my point is, we're again buying a loaf of bread and lying to ourselves that we bought 3. What ideally should be done, what is done in same places is simple. I do not want the average man or the common man to suffer this. So I make sure that he has viable means of moving around at heavily subsidized rates. So I can put buses on the road. I can say, look, for all taxis, once it's a commercial taxi, you will buy at 145 naira. We'll pay for it. Once it's a bus that is commercial, you will buy at 145 naira. Once we can put in all this BRT, you buy at 145 naira. But if you decide to take your own car to the pump, you will buy at the real price. That way, we will take off the entire 7 trillion naira that we are wasting and concentrate it on real things. We want to try and protect the masses. That's extremely very important. But in trying to do that, people that can take advantage of the system will take advantage of it. The truth is, we can't even afford it. And as long as we continue in this trajectory, a whole lot of trouble. Now for next year, now we hear that for 6 months, the subsidy will only remain for 6 months. So it's been budgeted about 3.6 trillion. At 3.6 trillion to cover subsidy for the first 6 months. So I can tell you off the top of my head, it's not going to happen in 6 months. Because there will be a new government, maybe effectively by the 1st of June. So you expect that the first thing they will do is to take all those things and they start shouting. They won't do that now, they will calm down small. They will calm down, or else people will start shouting on them. So you can expect that this will run till the end of the year again. So you're going to spend 7.2 trillion naira. The budget for next year is put about 20.51 trillion. So about 35% of it is going to go into this subsidy. That is all. We're lying to ourselves. We're lying to ourselves. And as long as we continue like this, it is major, major trouble, to deal with. One of the other things I look at is education. I am a strong believer in education. And I think that if you have the populace, if they're educated, a whole lot of things will go right. One of the things that helped the west of Nigeria then was that the premier decided that there had to be free education, especially primary and secondary school. In fact, what I heard was that they will arrest you. They will arrest you if your child doesn't go to school. And that's why you see a whole lot of things that happened in the West at those times. Education is great. And the most important part of it is the primary and the secondary. The university is good. Don't get me wrong. But it has to be attended to differently if we don't want to fool ourselves. So today, the average cost tuition in a Nigerian public university is about 75,000 naira. I know those that pay 30,000 naira. I know those that pay 50,000. There are some that pay 100,000 naira. Now, all you need to ask yourself is that, is this realistic? It's not. When we had asked to strike for 9 months. And what did they say? Government is not doing it. Government is not doing that. The truth is, because if the government doesn't want to be sincere, they will hide behind the finger as well and say, okay, we are looking at. The truth is, even if they want to look at it, they cannot look at it successfully. in this country, if 1 penny of our resources is not stolen, I'm saying 100% of the resources is kept in the kitty, it is still not enough for the things we need to handle. Not to now talk about tertiary education. So my point is, today we see a lot of people jackpying. What is the average cost of jackpying if you are going to university abroad? Probably will cost you close to what? $5,000 to $10,000. I'm talking of the tuition that you want to pay. That's what they get to pay. And if you put that into the context of Nigerian naira, it's about maybe about 7.5 million naira. So we come back home. That's not possible. People can't do that. Okay? In the private universities, they do not go on all these strikes. And the average cost is maybe about 800,000. Again, you cannot expect the average Nigerian parent to pay that. And we still want these people to go to school. So what's my own idea? And I did a lot because I sat on a committee. In fact, I chaired a committee that discussed this during that crisis. And I spoke to a lot of professionals in the field. I was part and parcel of the establishment of a private university. So I understand what these fundings are. So I said, look, if it costs about 800,000 naira in a lot of this private university, plus or minus, let's say it costs about 500,000 naira to be able to train a child properly in the university for a year. So we said that should be the cost of it. Now, this is how it goes for me. You have to subsidize scholars. So if somebody is indigent, cannot afford it, however, he is brilliant, and I'll say brilliant should be, okay, let's say 65%. Don't let me push it. If I'm a 65% person, let me say you're brilliant. So we will subsidize you. So you can go as much as say, we will subsidize a 65% person with about 75% of the price. So at the end of the day, what is left for him to pay, for him or her to pay, will probably come to maybe about 150,000, 200,000, because you're subsidizing it. But where are you going to get that money for the subsidy? Because you need the money. You can go to some of these universities and see what they say they are teaching themselves. That's why you can interview someone who is a graduate and is a non-starter. Because the quality is not the same. But it's still the same thing of buying a loaf of bread and fooling yourself. So you give a man a certificate and says BSc economics. Does it mean that he has learned anything? No. You know in the productivity when the man gets out there to say, go and produce. To what extent are they able to produce by themselves? So for you to get the kind of quality you want, you must ensure that it is the kind of quality that is imparted on them. So what's my own idea? If a boy is brilliant and you've given him scholarship, I will say, take that guy. Once you finish your lectures or whatever you're doing, go straight to the secondary school next to you or whatever and teach there as well. Because you're brilliant enough. Or go and teach the primary school. Look, there's a new program by the UK government now that says that teachers can start to jackpot once they've shown that whatever. So very soon you start to see teachers jackpot. They're not enough yet, but that numbers might go down. So I'm saying if I have millions of brilliant university students, and there are different ways you can be brilliant. You can be brilliant like Messi, who is just naturally talented. You can be brilliant like Ronaldo, who is not as talented but works so hard and so disciplined. So you're in the library, you are reading, you are doing researches, you are doing a lot of things to beef yourself up to that level. Then you can go and impart that knowledge on primary school students, on secondary school students, and then what we should have used to pay teachers, we give you a part of it to take care of yourself and take what. So if I say, okay, you know what? We'll even pay you what? 100,000 in a month, which will be a great price for you to have a great teacher. Aside of that, we give you 50,000 as your own pocket money. We take the other 50,000 and go and use it to meet the subsidy that we have given you. So we'll train you properly in the university. You still have some money in your pocket and what have you. However, children of people that can afford it need to pay it. And if you're a 40% student, or if we cannot give you the money from the Commonwealth to serve you to be a 40% student, it can't happen. Your father can keep paying for you to be 42%, that's fine. But you cannot take the Commonwealth to do that. So you have to actually learn the fact that, you know what, I will improve. And everybody can improve. Some people will give you, look, some of the people that were my classmates in the secondary school, that I did not think that they were the most serious people in the world then. I look at some of them today, and they are major sources of inspiration to me. major sources. I listen to them and think the absolute 360. Because if you pay attention to details, a whole lot of things can happen to you. And if you're faced with such situation, you will do it. So for me, that's what will happen. Now, if we don't adopt this strategy, we will keep fooling ourselves that the government, it's a very easy default language here. Why is it happening that it is the government, they're stealing money. And they too cannot talk, because if a man is put in custody of 100 naira and he steals just 10 naira, the mere fact that he's compromised, he can't say anything again. So even no matter how much you say government, they can't really scream as much, even if all they've compromised is 10% of the resources. But the truth I keep repeating is that look at the entire budget for next year, 20.5 trillion. It is not enough to manage just, we can't even service our debt with it. Not to now talk of things like education, recurrent expenditure, infrastructure that we need to start to get the economy rolling. So for me, again, is the issue of, can we as citizens have a sober reflection, agree on these things in terms of what we bring to the table, and then ensure that we now hold the government responsible. Some of the things I look at again is equitable taxation, and I've looked at this a long time. 90% of the working populace are out of the tax bucket. The people that are taxed are the ones that we can catch. Payee, we can catch them. The big ones that we can see that 90% are. And the people that are not, what are they doing for me? What are they doing? They're not doing anything. The ones that are there, they're stealing it anyway. You know what? It's a whataboutism logic. The truth is, because we're all not paying that optimum tax, we are all paying it in a different way. And I'll give you a very simple example. In my house, I get to, when I used to live somewhere around here, and it was a whole house by myself. So I get to buy diesel into my generator, and it's only me that I'm using it with my own small family. I get to hire a guard who stands to open and close my door. I get to dig my borehole. I get to watch my back differently when I'm moving. There's so much money that I am paying because there is not enough cover for most of these things. Now, in the places where they make everybody pay those taxes, what will happen is that they do not have to pay for most of those things, and the value goes down. So today, I live in an estate where there is light maybe for like 20 hours in a day or thereabout. But the tariff that I pay is way higher. But when I look at that tariff, vice versa what I pay when I use that, it is nothing. So it tells you that the more you put something into the bucket of a commonwealth and you now have shared services, your cost goes down. And that's basically what tax do for you, if you're being honest with yourself. The more you put a whole lot of money by everybody into a common bucket and we use it for everybody, everybody's cost goes down. The more we do not do that and everybody stands onto themselves as a government, the more expensive things are. Now, why are we not able to stand up and say, this is the way we want to run things? It is because we all are prepared to do the compromises. There are some of us today that we see leaders and we say, you know what, we don't trust this person. This person will not do well as my local government chairman. We all know that. But we went to my school. Oh, it's from my local government. Oh, it's from my village. We all are prepared for all that compromises. Because at that point, it pays us. My classmate, I can reach him with just one phone call. Or it's my in-law. Yeah. The moment all those things play around it, we are prepared to give up to allow all the compromises. But then, when it goes onto the other foot, there is not someone we can reach, and then we have to pay the cost of it, then there's issue. So for me, I think it is that feeling of that sober reflection that will make a whole lot of things work differently. If I walk down today, I touch down on the plane today at Heathrow, and they show me the line, I stay on that line. I don't fight, no trouble. If I get to the immigration officer, I'm saying, good afternoon, sir. Yes. As he's asking me the question, I'm answering. The moment I get to meet Allah, do you know me? Do you know? Who are you? You see, it's the same. You see the same person that was on the queue with you, behaving well. that policeman is talking to or someone is talking to behaving properly, the moment he lands on that Muritala, like, Muritala, this is Muritala. Do you know me? Why are you disturbing me? I'm already telling someone to take me across the line. We all break those rules together, and the consequences is shared amongst us all. The consequences is shared, and it affects our economy. And trust me, I listen to a whole lot of things that Mr. Mbalogun said. A whole lot, and it's good, but trust me, if there's not enough money in your pocket, if there's not enough material to service your obligation, no matter the level of motivation, speaking that is to you, to a hungry man, he cannot listen. You cannot listen. You cannot hear. Sorry? No, no matter what, you need a little bit of leverage for me to listen to. So I've had breakfast, this has happened, and that's why I'm listening. If I'm really hungry, you know what? I cannot. So you have to cater to people's material well-being. You have to cater to their pockets. You have to make sure that jobs are got. You have to make sure that the infrastructure is there for them to be able to make the best use of their talents, God-given talents, and achieve things. But not under this kind of circumstance or condition that's almost impossible. Look, I consult for a hospitality concern. And when the price of diesel shot crazy in February, my advice to them was simple. What's your room capacity? They say it's 50. Okay. How many do you sell averagely a day? Say we sell 20. How much do you sell? We sell maybe at about 40,000 naira. So what do you make? You make about 40 by 10, that's about 800,000 naira. Okay, if they sell 20. However, around then they decide to sell about 10. So they make 400,000. And then they buy 1,000 liters of diesel for 800,000 naira. And they use 1,000 liters every day. And they sell 400,000. So I say, you know what? Tell your front desk officers, they should pick up their phone. When they call them, say you are fully booked. Lie to your customers that they shouldn't come, that you are fully booked. The reason is simple. You are making 400,000. You are spending 800,000 every day. So in your own opinion, you are selling. People are coming. But you're actually losing. That's what's happening in most of these organizations that you see that are folding up. People think they are making money because they are selling. But the truth is that their bottom line is minus. When I used to be in the bank a long time ago, the people that sell cigarettes, they bring money in tons. Carton upon carton, millions upon millions. But the margin is so small that even if one small thing goes wrong, they're making losses. What they see is the huge turnover. They're not making any money. So you will actually see that things need to look a little bit different, you know, for us to be able to get things done. And I think most of those things can start by us here. And I'm saying by us here generally to say, how should we not have a sober reflection? Should we fool ourselves that we have 3 loaves of bread when what you actually have is 1? You know, the final one I was going to talk about is on local government allocation. And I heard the president, I've written about this about 6 months ago, when the president insisted that local government allocation should come directly from Abuja and go straight to the local government account. Now that's supposed to be standard, basic. But no, there's something called the joint local government account, where the money goes into between the state and the local government for start, and then from there they decide how to share. So the states can also tell them, we are going to deduct for this, deduct for that. And the most basic place that our lives are affected is actually at the local government level. That's actually the government that we know. The man next door to us that we know, we can always walk. You're not going to walk to the guy in Abuja. The mayors get the things done in a Western country like maybe America, because they're the ones that are closest to the people, they understand it, and terrains differ from place to place. But here, the president actually just said about 3 weeks ago that the governors are the ones messing up this whole thing, and they're not allowing a direct allocation from Abuja. Again, where do we stand? Most of those local government people are perhaps even put there by the governors. So they're not prepared to say, you know what, this money should come to us directly. So my point is, at the end of the day, all this boils down to us. There is nobody called Mr. President. There's nobody called Mr. Senate President. There's nobody called Mr. Speaker. It is you and I. It is what we allow that they do. If you keep asking questions, they will keep having to answer them. If you keep, I read every time and said, oh, I think I read about 2-3 weeks ago, it was a columnist that was saying that, look, what you pay an average legislator in this country is ridiculous. Okay? And we are still fighting to pay the cheapest person here minimum wage. We are still fighting to make it 30,000 naira. But you can afford to pay millions to public servants. If you don't want to serve us, stay in your house. Let the person that wants to serve and is prepared to do it almost pro bono, let him go ahead and, is it not ideas? Who allows most of these things? I think it's us. So this is the crux of my argument when I say about the fierce urgency of now in terms of all the things that's going on around, that is affecting our health, that's affecting our stability, that's affecting our emotions, that is causing disruptions within our homes. So Madam has been telling us a lot of things about how she's been managing Oga and things like that. But fantastic. But I can tell you that the man is referring to is probably working his socks off to make sure he comes back home with the bacon. Trust me, if that man every day, my sweetheart, well done, blah, blah, and goes to go and watch television and doesn't drop anything. Madam can be a nice woman, well trained, this time she can do cooking. If he keeps repeating that for 6 months, you call, Bible call the mother-in-law, speak to your son. No. After a while, she will break. She will break. It's just natural. So at the end of the day, it's extremely important that we cater for those things. So in conclusion, I say, can we start to pull ourselves together to correct these ills? When they say, let's take off the subsidy, let's take it off. But in taking it off, make sure you take care of all my people. Moving from Ikorodu to Victoria Island, they will not feel, all my Uber people that are moving around, we let them do it. All the people driving beer, we let them do it. But to people like Coach Anekan or Mrs. Yomi Balogun, who have decided to own a car, they will pay the real price. If they don't want to pay the real price, they can drop that car in their house and go and join the Uber, which will move at that level. That's what most people do. But you don't want to do it. I want to put my Mercedes on the road, and then all on, it cannot happen. So for me, it's important. Then when we do this, we now make the leadership accountable. Because it's like when you want to do a fast. Okay? I'm a Muslim, and during Ramadan, everybody's fasting. Now, the good thing about fasting is that I'm looking at the next door person. I'm with the fast too. It's 2 o'clock. It is well. And we're all happy together. Because we're all leading each other by example. We're seeing things done. If for any reason, as I'm mistakenly moving around, I see somebody eating rice, my spirit will be dampened. The idea behind it is to say that we are all in this together. If someone tells us today that if all of us decide that we'll have just 1 meal a day for the next 60 days, that after 60 days, all our problems will disappear. We all can decide that we will do it. And we are looking at each other. He's doing it. Okay? We are all happy doing it together because it's the shared sacrifice. The moment we think that some people are cutting corners, we start to get hungry. So we start to get hungry because it's like that. So for me, I think, honestly, it's time each of us in our little space, in our little corner, voice out these things, understand that we are consistently betraying the first principles of economics to say there is not enough. It is not true that we are a rich country. We're a country with rich potentials, but we are not there yet. And as long as we're not there yet, to be building our castles in the air and thinking someone saying, I will do this road, I'll do 5, it is not correct. Because what I look at is, I look at the revenue with which he wants to do it. The entire revenue they've shown me for the year 2023 already is just about enough to service debt. No recurrent expenditure, no infrastructure. So the only way to go about this is that they will go out to go and borrow more. So you are in a hole and you keep digging and you keep digging and you keep digging. How long? I think we need to think about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Owoni Koko. But we have to be very honorable in doing that. And one of the ways is to be very honest, straightforward, sincere. And it's a collective effort, really. that example he gave last, it's supposed to be a collective effort, but when you see others, it takes the grace of God for a righteous man or a person to stand. Thank you. Any comment? Any question? I'll take only one. Okay, please introduce yourself so that we get to know.
Please, let's put our hands together for Dr. Abina. My question is, so the last part, where you agree with people to do something together, whether it's a fast or whatever, and then you see someone veering off, and it demoralizes you and deflates you. What keeps you going? Because I think the fundamental thing in everything you said is values. And a lack of values is what is plaguing us as a country. So what keeps you going? What's the staying power to be able to say, he's doing it, but I will stay on this straight and narrow way, no matter how difficult it is? Because most times we find that the good men that stay on those lanes end up with nothing down the line. So that is my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's not really a question, maybe like a little contribution and maybe clarification. You talked about us coming together to change the narrative. And I was trying to counter many of us in this room. I have always been a believer of us changing things from our little corners. If everybody here says, oh, we need to do things correctly in Nigeria, and it cascades down to my husband, my children, everybody in my household, I personally believe that things will change. But like you said, we like compromising. Whether you're a pastor, imam, or you have seen pastors compromising. You want to buy fuel, why can't you spend 30 minutes? Shh, come. Why would you do that? Do you understand? We're in traffic, you don't want to stay on the queue. Do you understand? So we need to, what I'm trying to say is, I'm encouraging us, everybody seated here today, on our own, in our little corners, something good can come out of it that can slowly but consistently, intentionally affect the larger space. Thank you very much, sir, for that. And I love your position. I mean, I've read a couple of things that you write, and I know this has been your position. You have been consistent about this. And when I put this thing down, and I say, God bless you. You know, when I put something you said down, God bless you. That's all I'll say. Thank you, sir.
So I was just going to ask, the only thing that makes a society just as much as possible is rules, laws, and we follow it. So in some of the countries that we respect, what we see is that the rules, the legal frameworks are strong. And no matter how big you are, once I will send you some of my papers, some of the first things I said we need to do before we even start talking about how to move on. If the legal framework is strong, right, the people that decide to cut corners will be dealt with. So for instance, look at America today. Donald Trump did not want to relinquish power, but the institutions were so strong that they insisted he had to. And then very importantly, there are also values. What exactly do you hold there? It's good to have money to be rich, and I've seen these things, my friend. I have seen people. But two things I've learned and I've taught myself. The first thing I taught myself is, and you try it, every time you go to the house of a very powerful man who is very wealthy, and you see him surround his entire environment like this with money, dollars, pounds, and everything. Good afternoon, sir. I just thought I haven't seen you for like 3 months. I said I should come around. How are you doing? Are you fine? How's your health? How's everything? And you say goodbye without telling him that your daughter just had a baby or you want his help, and you walk away. The volume of your respect is up there. If a man that is powerful and rich cannot conquer you with his money, he will keep looking for you. This is life example that I have tested. If you call him at 3 a.m., he will pick it up. In my days when I was in the bank, public sector was one of my forte. There was hardly a governor who would pick up my phone and call. He would pass my call to his PA, it won't happen. Because he was certain I wasn't going to go and ask for a piece of land or a favor. I was going to bring value to you. And with those values, you enhance yourself. And I learned, my father died in 1990. And when he died, I just left university. When he died, there were so many, he was a judge. He was called to the British bar in 1947. I'm the son of an old man. There were so many people I knew were his friends, but he never told me about. When I started working in the bank, in 1999, I was posted to the West, where I actually worked a whole lot and was a big-time judge there. And everywhere I go to, and I can give you two specific examples. Afe Babalola. Afe Babalola is like a 94-year-old legal luminary today. The first time I met him was when I was in that water, and there was a little trouble, and he said, "You're Justice Abina's son? What did he sit down? There's nothing they can do to you." He's 94 years today, he lives in Ado-Ekiti. If I walk into his house today and I want pounded yam, nobody will offer me rice. And he says, "Oh, your father was my good friend. He was my friend. He did this to me, he did that to me." And I've seen that like in 2-3 instances. This was the man that died several years ago that never told me any of these things. So apparently in this life, the way we all continue to behave and act now is actually recorded against us, that somehow down the line, somebody will pay for it. So maybe somebody is actually slapping you today. I said, "Okay, I didn't do anything now." Perhaps somebody has misbehaved in the past. And I think these are some of the values we can learn. So everybody around you might be totally misbehaving. You determine what your value is and what you want to hold by. And if you get it right, you probably get it wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It does